I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. Now, I'm going to do a news story, and this is kind of more of a response to Jamarl Thomas's. He did a video about sex and the human language, and at least in the United States, how we talk about sex to each other and how religion has affected that. And this is a really good talk he did, and if you haven't watched his show or you haven't watched that video, go check that video out first and then come back and watch it. So pause it if you're watching this, pause it, go check his out, and then watch mine because you're really gonna need to watch his first, so you can really get the full context of where I'm starting from. And I'm gonna start with he is absolutely right that religion, Christianity especially, since that's the dominant religion in the United States. I'm not sure about Canada or Mexico, but at least in the United States, Christianity is the dominant religion. And it's very clear that with Christianity, you're not allowed to have sex before marriage. So I guess ideally, especially when they first immigrated here to, start practicing their religion how they wanted to, they said, you know what, well, if we try to get pretty much everybody that's not married to not talk about sex, really, especially the young people, the people from 16 to 19, maybe 16 to 18, really. If you get the young teenagers that are underage and aren't living on their own, if you try to get them to not talk about sex as much, I guess the theory is that they're not going to have as much sex. So they really ingrained into society, especially the religious community. Well, since they had the levers of power, it really extended to the whole society. And that's why our society has really not just catered to, but kind of also in a way embodied at least some portions of Christianity as part of the society, because they had the levers of power, and that's kind of how we ran our society, was kind of through religious leaders, especially early in, I'm assuming that's how we did it early in the U.S. history. But this is actually pretty important about how we don't talk about sex that much, and how you really can't just express yourself about, or at least some people feel like they can't really express themselves sexually. Because his good example is about how his wife didn't just explicitly say she wanted to have sex, that sort of thing. And that especially for people who haven't been married that long, or just dating, occasionally that's gonna, maybe create situations where maybe the couple should have sex and they're not, because one party's not, explicitly saying that they want to have sex. Also, what's important about the religious leaders and especially the Christian leaders trying to get people to not talk about sex. One huge flaw about this is that when couples are married, they don't talk about, hey, once you're married, then you could go explore your sexuality. You could talk about sex. Hey, as married couples, let's get together occasionally and let's actually openly talk about sex and, well, maybe what we like or we don't like, or, so on and so forth. I never hear that, but again, I'm not in the married couples, groups or married couples classes or anything like that, so maybe they do talk about that, but I highly doubt it, because I never really hear any of them talk anything about how they did talk about sex occasionally, and how they don't talk about, it's just pretty much, it's just, we don't talk about sex. And since I'm a Christian, I'm a little bit of an expert on this, but yeah, it's just, you don't talk about sex, or let's not talk about sex, and let's not have sex until you're married. That's pretty much it. So it's a real problem when married couples, not just Christian married couples, but I'm pretty sure that Jamarl Thomas, he's not married, or he's not a Christian, and his wife, may or may not be, I'm not sure, but it's a little bit of an issue when you're married and then you really feel like you have to be very implicit and have to encode your language about sex and flowery language, because occasionally you're going to miss out because one or both parties aren't going to say, hey, I actually want to have sex, so let's have sex right now. And it could be just simple as that, and not just, hey, let's fuck, something like that. Because that's very vulgar, and with sex you can't be vulgar at all. I also think that's partially why think about 11 plus years ago, is why a lot of people really didn't like rap music. Because I like rap music, and that's what I listen to. And whenever they talk about sex and rap, they were vulgar, because it wasn't coding sex in any flowery language at all. It was just talking about, hey, I'm going to beat that pussy up, because that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what I fucking want. And people didn't like that. And they said, oh, that's so crass. It's so disgusting. But of course, that's what they were doing, is they were beating that pussy up too. They just didn't want to say it like that. And I was cool with it because that's what I wanted to listen to. I don't want to hear about, oh, we're making love all the time and this and that and encoding it. Nah, I don't want to hear that. That's a little bit off the topic. But also, not talking about sex also leads to other repercussions throughout society, like high teen pregnancies that go on, because that also leads into the Christian conservatives talk about how we have to just do abstinence only sex ed, which is a disaster. They really need to do just comprehensive sexual education, because kids in the community, not just the kids, but the community needs to be protected and know about how to protect themselves from STDs and making sure they're not spreading those diseases, because you may get one and not know it. And that really harms the health of the community in general. So that's like one or two serious repercussions about not wanting to talk about sex. Is now people aren't getting protected because nobody wants to talk to them about it. And another thing that I've also thought about how and why we don't, or why some people don't explicitly talk about what they want sexually, is because of society structure in general, about how society wants and puts expectations on us depending on who we are, and they expect you to fill it out or fulfill those expectations out, because ideally in a society people have certain expectations, and when they fill them and meet them, it benefits all of society. But since we don't live such a equitable world, an equitable social system, sometimes those expectations are there just so you can benefit the wealthy, powerful establishment and the wealthy white men especially. But that's a little bit off tangent. But at least when it comes to sex, a lot of it comes from, with women, at least from an outsider, me being a man, I do see that women are expected to be classy, elegant, reserved, and nice. They're really driven to be that way, because that's what society wants from them. Especially so the men could keep the power, because part of the social structure and social expectations is so certain people have power, certain people will not have the power. So then when society demands and expects women to be classy and reserved, then they're really not gonna really be aggressive in their language, at least with certain aspects, especially when it comes to sex. Because even though we're expected to be strong, bold, a little aggressive, and to take risks, there's still the social constraints and the social boundaries around what you should and should say about sex and how you should talk about it, because you still don't want to make, society in general, or maybe just too many people that you encounter, uncomfortable if you just go over the line with being more vulgar and upfront than what society would like. So but when I come back to the women and talk about how society wants them to be classy and reserved, they're gonna definitely be, kind of forgot where I was, but, and then even when the women are in kind of the closed relationship, in a way of a relationship, like especially a long-term relationship or a marriage, there's still this social pressure to still be that classy, reserved person. So, and especially with sex, because also one part is that in the Bible, violence is very prevalent because of usually there's always one or another group of individuals, or one other group of nations trying to war and kill each other to take power and take their land, so on and so forth. Oh, and then sometimes the Jewish people, especially in the olden days, sometimes when they went to war against another group of individuals, God said they had to kill each and every single group of those individuals to make sure that they didn't get corrupted. So sometimes those Jewish people didn't kill everybody in that group, so that eventually they got corrupted and God punished them. So they really got fucked over when they didn't kill each individual. So I think that's a lot of where violence is okay, but sex is not, because sometimes it's because war is kind of a constant theme in the Bible, and violence is a constant theme. So it's kind of hard to get away, or kind of hard to just say, no, violence is not okay, when sometimes God said, hey, you had to kill these people, period, point blank, no questions asked. But God definitely said, if you're not married, you can't have sex. And when you're married, you can't have sex with anybody else. So a lot of that is from the Bible. And I kind of lost my point again, or lost my place. But even with that, closely personal relationship, even if you say, hey wife, or hey girlfriend, hey, you can actually tell me what you want explicitly. If you want me to fuck you, just say, hey, let's fuck, or let's have sex. Since society has really pushed them to talk in a certain way, it's really very hard for them to break out of that. Because the same thing happened when I was with my kid's mom. She really didn't want to talk about, or she didn't want to mention if she wanted to have sex. She really was really reserved in that way for the most part. She didn't really want to say, hey Leon, let's have sex today, or let's have sex right now, or yeah, we can have sex in like 20 minutes or something. She really never wanted to say that, because she was pushed, to be this reserved person. At least, especially when it comes to talking about sex. Me, I wanted sex, so I was going to say, hey, let's have sex, or you want to have sex today? Because that's what I wanted. And that, for me, that was the most pleasant and most classy way for me to say, hey, I actually want sex, period, point blank. There's no ambiguity about it, no implicitness about it. It's just clear as you could be with the language, while being nice about it. Because it was years ago, but I don't know if she would have responded well if I talked about, hey, let's fuck, I'm ready to fuck. Or if I talked about, I need some pussy, honey, come on, let's go. I don't think she would have responded that way. So Jamarl's totally right.